The Behringer wing is so confusing. Last week, someone called me to go and tune a sound system for a permanent installation somewhere. I'll not mention any details because every time I share a real life situation, some people get offended and upset. I don't want to deal with that. Anyway, this was the first time I used a wing for real work. I have tinkered a little bit with the edit app before, and I have went to the shop a few times and played with the wing. I thought it was really cool and had some things that other mixers in the same price range don't have. But this is the first time that I was actually doing some real work with it, and I needed to know exactly what I'm doing. The routing is so weird. When I first heard some people talking about the wing when it first came out, and they were saying that it's not very volunteer friendly, I thought, come on, okay, that's fine. Like, you can get used to it. It's not that big of a deal. But when I actually used it myself, although I had an idea of how it worked, my brain wasn't braining. There's such a heavy emphasis on sources instead of channels. So on your X32, XR18 mixers, the main thing is the channel and you assign a physical input to it, right? Here, the main thing is the physical input and you give it a channel. So the actual source can be mono or stereo. You don't link channels. The channel can be either mono or stereo, but that setting was not on the channel. That's the most confusing thing to me. The polarity inversion is on the channel, but like, where do I decide if the channel is mono or stereo? It's not here, it's in the routing. You go to the sources and in that source, you decide that source will be a stereo source and these two inputs are linked now. And after that, you can go to the channels page and give this channel to these inputs. So these two inputs are getting into this one channel. You see how this is starting to be confusing? Also the names, you don't name the channel, you name the source. So the channel names come from sources page. You click on the source, and then it takes you to the home tab of the channel to name the source. So if I call this Dan and close, now this source is called Dan, not the channel. So if I give another channel this same source, it will be called Dan. You see the confusion? The name does not belong to the channel, it belongs to the physical input. Also regarding the mono and stereo and mid-side, first of all, it's great that there is a mid-side option without having to do workarounds. But this option is also hidden. Like, tell me right here, where is the mid-side? You'd think you need to go to the channel to find it, but it's not there. So, okay, you go to the routing to find it, but it's not there. If the channel doesn't have an input, you cannot see the option to be mono or stereo or mid-side. You have to actually assign an input to it, and then this will show. I would prefer if it was just grayed out, and then when you assign to it something, it lights up and it tells you that you can press on it. Because when I was first assigning stuff to it, nothing was assigned to the input. So it was all like this and I did not see this option. Then after assigning, it showed up and oh, okay, I can make this source stereo and now these two inputs will get into this channel. Confusing. Also, the oscillator. That was the thing that I wasted the most time on. In my head, the signal generator should have its own page. I know that there are two signal generators on the wing, but I couldn't find them. So I was looking around, nothing, setup, nothing. In the routing, there is here something called oscillator. Okay, great. There's an oscillator. Click on it. Now there's noise on the channel. Okay, but where are the settings of the oscillator? Like, how do I change the settings? How do I decide what kind of noise I want? Good question, right? It's in the sources. You have to go to the sources page because the oscillator is considered a source. Then you can decide how loud it is, if it's a sine wave or pink noise or white noise and what frequency it's on. So if you click here, it takes you to the channel. So that signal generator is actually acting like an input for the channel. Really confusing. And what's worse is that you can assign the signal generator directly to an output. So right here, I can go to the outputs page and choose, for example, AS50A and give it to output 11. So I'll click on output 11 and from here choose oscillator and give it this oscillator. And this was a huge problem because I have the oscillator set to pink noise at minus 18 dB. And in the outputs page, if you assign the oscillator to an output, it's not going through the matrix or the bus. It's going directly to the output. So the sub was giving me pink noise at minus 18 dB full volume. And what's even worse is that if you leave that page, it's so many steps to go back and find the oscillator and remove it from that output. So pink noise at minus 18 dB full volume of the speaker was blasting for like 3 or 5 seconds before I could get to it. So I learned the hard way that the oscillator does not work like the X32. If I want to send it out of an output, I actually need to go to the channels page and set it as an input for a channel and then send that channel to whatever bus or matrix that is going to that output. Very like this. Why can't I just generate noise on a matrix or on a bus? On the X32, it's really easy because I can just send that minus 18 to the main mix or to a matrix and turn down the fader of the matrix without having to either send it to a channel or to assign it directly to the output bypassing the matrix. You understand what I'm trying to say? It's good that there are two signal generators, but the implementation is kind of backwards. I'm sorry on that. It could be better. Something I did really like is the main buses, that there are 4 main mixes, not just one. And you might ask, why would you need 4 main mixes? Can't you just like use a bus send or a matrix? Sure, but that's not the point. You might also think that you just have one main mix, one main left-right on your X32, but you don't. You have 2. You have the mono bus and the main left-right. The mono bus is a main bus. So right here, instead of just having one stereo bus and one mono bus, all 4 can be either stereo or mono. You can go to it and go to the home page, click right here, I guess, yes, and then click mono and it becomes mono. See, that's another confusing thing. Why on the main bus or other buses, the mono button is on the bus setup page, but for the channels, it's on the sources page in the routing. You see how that's getting confusing? Look, local, source, and right here it's mono or stereo or whatever. That's inconsistent. So I wanted to do my main thing, that is sending the main left-right to a matrix and then sending just the bass instruments, kick drum and bass guitar, to the subwoofers on a different mix. So that would be the main left-right and the mono bus. In this case, I would use main 1 as the main mix and main 2 as the mono bus. I would make it mono and just send the kick drum and bass. But I faced a problem. On the X32, you can link channels. There's a setting in the setup to link the mono bus to the main left-right. And so when you turn down the main, the subs also get down or up. But here I couldn't figure out where that link would be. Then I looked in the setup and it's right here in the audio setup, or you can click on that little thing up here. It's the same interface on the mixer. So in the audio setup page, there's preferences and here you have main link and you can see 1, 2. So if I do this, the second main bus will be linked to the first. You can see that little blue line. It indicates that the level of that bus is moving with the main one. And you can link the others also. So 2 and 3 are linked to 1 and 2, 3, 4 are linked to 1. And this is different from a bus send because this is a main mix. They are all main mixes and you can decide what to send to each one of them. So you're still mixing with the normal faders of the channels. You don't have to worry about sends. But if you go here to a channel, home, and I guess right here. See, I'm confused now. Okay, right here. You can turn the channel on in the other mixes. So if we say that mix 2 will be the subs, I just turn on the kick drum and the bass in that mix. Mix 3, let's say it can be side fills or front fills where you want the vocals to be louder than the other instruments and maybe you don't want to send drums or guitar amps to the front because people can hear them from the stage. You can turn off these channels in the front fills and you can raise up the vocals in the front fills. So you have a different mix, but it's still the main mix, but balanced slightly different for different types of speakers. And you can link all of these main mixes to the first main mix. So whenever you move your main fader on the side of the console, it's affecting everything together. That's really cool. I really liked that. We didn't end up doing it. We ended up just splitting main left right, crossing over the subs and the mains, just one mix, because there's no one really who knows what to do there. They're just volunteers and they want something to just work, because if you add or remove instruments, you have to remember to add them to the other mix. So we ended up just doing a main left right, and I split it off at the matrices, and I did some EQ for each one of them. Here we go. And I also like that the matrices are stereo or mono. So there is 8 matrices, but I don't have to link anything. They are 8 stereo matrices. On the Behringer X32, it's 8, not even 8, it's 6 mono matrices. So for the wing, that's a really huge win. By the end of my time there, I started getting the hang of it. I was like, okay, now I know what I'm doing. Like if I want to do something, I know where to look for it. But it is very disorienting if you're using it for the first time, because there's so much ingrained in your habits that I want a generator, I will look for that kind of page in this kind of menu. And the Behringer Wing just flipped everything over and decided to make their own rules. But I like it. Also, something I really appreciate is copying mixes and setting levels. So let me go to a bus right here. And if I go to the home page of that bus, I can click on this, or on the second tab, bus feed, I can click on it and decide which channels go to that bus and the tap point of these channels. So instead of going to each channel individually, which I thought I needed to do at first, and choose from here the tap, you can actually, from the bus page, click here and select some channels and say that I want all of these to go post fader and apply. Or I want it to be a group and apply. And you can see it's changing for these channels. You can also ignore the mute. So if you mute a channel, it doesn't get muted in a bus. You can also set a level. So I can say set to 0 dB, apply, and look, all these channels are set to 0 dB. If I want to set them to -10, I can do this and click to -10, apply, boom. Set to -infinity, apply, -infinity. And do this from channel fader, apply. It takes the value of the fader of the channel. That's really cool. On the Behringer X32, you have to, like a peasant, go to each channel and set it to 0 or -10 or whatever value you want. Here you can just with a click of a button. And by the way, on Mixing Station, this feature is available for any mixer from right here, the 3 dots. And you can go to Mix Copy and you can set 0 to bus 3, for example, or -infinity, and click copy. So I like that they implemented it on the mixer itself. That's really helpful. Also, you can send channels directly to a matrix. You can't do that on the X32. You can turn on the channel and send it directly to a matrix. So you could be sending a whole mix to the matrix and send an individual channel at the same time. On the X32, you would have to waste a bus to do that. You'd need to send the channel to a bus and then send the bus to a matrix. So let me give you an example. For live stream mix, if you want to send your main left right to the live stream, but just add the crowd mics to it, you can send it to a matrix and send just the crowd mics also to that same matrix. Also, it has a tap EQ, so you can send the channel to a bus and also add an EQ before the send that is independent from the EQ of the actual channel, which is really good because oftentimes people are like, can you add bass to my voice in my monitor? And okay, sure, I'll just boost the EQ of the bus master. But I don't want to add bass to your voice for everyone else because it doesn't sound right. So right here, I can just go to the tap EQ and boost some low end for that person that surely knows what they're asking for. And that EQ is just for the send of that channel to that bus. After doing all this, I do agree with the people that said that it's not volunteer friendly at all. But once you kind of surrender and accept that you don't know how to use this mixer and you start tapping on things and figuring things out, you get the hang of it. Like 2-3 hours, I felt very comfortable to know where I want to look for things. My only complaint is that everything is too many steps to get into the thing you want to get to, especially with the routing. I'll go to Mixing Station because that's what I will always use for everything. There is an app for Android. That's great. I'm so glad they did a good app for Android. However, right here, if I want to go to the routing, it's the same: sources, channels, outputs. So I go to sources, and right here, I will find the signal generator, oscillator right here. I have 1 and 2, and I can set the frequency and the level, then go back and then go back into the routing and channels, and I'll assign to channel 40, signal source, oscillator 1. See, too many steps. And I go back Now I have to enter these again, channels, and I have to select this thing again. It doesn't remember where I was. So that's what I told you previously, that I set the pink noise to an output directly. I did this, routing outputs AS50A11, and I chose Oscillator 1. And I went back, and then I realized that it was too loud and I want to turn it off. So I had to go back to routing, and back to outputs, and back to AS50A, and find output 11, and go right here to the signal source to the oscillator, and then turn it off. Too many steps. That's too long of a time. Now, to be fair, the Android app kind of remembers the Wing Copilot. So if I go back to the mix and go back to the routing, I still have to choose outputs, but it remembers where I was on which setup. So this is half good. Even though I complained a lot about it in this video, I still think it's an incredible value for the amount of money you're paying for it. And if I were to buy a mixer right now, instead of buying the M32, I would definitely buy the Wing. Even though it's not conventional and you'll have to relearn a lot of things, I still think it's a really good mixer. And it's kind of funny, like for effects, you don't have preset effects like you do on the X32. You would go to a bus and then you would add an insert on that bus. So let's say effects rack 2, and then you would go to the effects page and assign something to here, like a plate reverb, for example. And you can put the bus itself on the main left right directly. So if I go here, I can turn it on. And now the reverb is going to the main left right without wasting a return channel. I don't have to return it on a separate channel to send that to the mix. I can directly put the reverb bus on the mix. However, something that caught me off guard, I was like, why there's no reverb? I have done all these things. And then I realized that this was not on. This little on needed to be turned on. Little things like that you don't obviously see at first. I also liked that in this version of the Vintage Room, they upgraded it. So I sometimes use the freeze function to keep the reverb going after the phrase has ended. But in the X32, this keeps up building up, and if there's sound, it keeps building it until your speakers blow up. In this version, it doesn't do that. It freezes whatever it had, and if you want to add something to that sound, you'd click add, and release it, it stops. I like that. And the thing that I like the most is that you can actually assign channels on the control surface however you want. On the X32, you cannot do that. That's why I mainly use Mixing Station always, because I can put whatever I want, wherever I want. And the mixer is very rigid. In here, you can put whatever channel or send or whatever really you want on any fader. You can grab it from here and put it there. You can remove this from here, put this one here instead, and this will reflect on the actual surface. Right here, you decide which layer you're working on. So these are the layer buttons. Right here, you can decide if you want to put a send. So this would be, for example, the send of channel 4 to bus number 2. That will be on a fader, or you can choose a certain parameter like decay time to a fader. So fader number 5 would be the length of the reverb, or you can send MIDI info if you're using MIDI controller. That's really some advanced stuff. You can customize the actual control surface a lot, which I think is really smart. Instead of using a big metal chunk just to raise and lower faders, you can actually get some use out of it. I've been talking for about an hour now. If you liked my thoughts, if you like this video, click on the like button and go to the video on the screen right now, and I'll see you there.